This topic then is the establishment of the PKTT. You may proceed. It starts at paragraph 26 of your statement on page 9.
The National Political Killings Task Team, and I want to make reference to that, use that, but and explain it so that we have synergy. In all the documents that relate to this task team, it is referred to as the National Political Killings Task Team or the National Task Team, or in some specific cases called PKTT. I'm just saying this to remove any confusion, especially one that I picked up in another commission in Parliament, where there was sort of an outright denial that there's something called National Political Killings Task Team. And there are reasons for that, that it was called National Political Task Team. It refers to the budget. It refers to the leadership of the National Political Task Team, in particular, to make it virtually national. So it was established in 2018 by an inter-ministerial committee chaired by the Minister of Police. Now, the interministerial committee itself was appointed by the President of the Republic, President Cyril Ramaphosa. This was in response to a surge which had been building over time in KwaZulu-Natal, a surge in what came to be described as political killings, which refers to the murders or assassinations of people occupying political positions in that province, in some cases also together with officials in government structures. Now, there was then a concern that there was a surge, a noticeable surge, and it was like consistent. And the president then decided that he would appoint an interministerial committee, and he instructed them to work on a mechanism that would contain the situation and actually reverse that trend that was taking root at that particular time. Now, it was created as a special project, just like in the language in government, where a special project can be created in any department. And it was established through an exercise of executive authority. Now, I need to emphasize that it was established through, if you like, political intervention, where the president was using his executive powers to intervene in a situation as was necessary. It was not established in terms of Section 11(2)(d) of the Constitution of the Republic. Section 11(2)(d) of the South African Police Act 68 of 1995, which, in other words, a combination of the two, which empowers the National Commissioner to establish components or units within SAPS. Its creation was therefore political and time-bound, and it did not form part of SAPS' permanent organizational structure. National Commissioner can establish a task team anytime he sees fit, and using the powers bestowed on him by the Constitution and by the Police Act. A provincial commissioner can also do so. Even at district level, such task teams can be established. But the National Political Killings Task Team wasn't one of those established by the National Commissioner. It was established through that political intervention in the exercise of executive powers by the President. Now, because the NPKTT was a project, it was always understood that it was interim in nature. It was never at any stage understood to be a permanent kind of setup. And I must distinguish between a team at this stage to clarify my point. It was never established as a unit. It was established as a team, actually a task team. Now, and there's a difference between a team and a unit in subs. And I'm explaining that because at one point when the commission was on and Major General Van Rooyen was asked a specific question in this regard, she said, if I remember correctly, she said, there is no difference between a unit and a team. And there is a difference. Now, the NPKTT was established as a project. It was allocated a specific budget taken from various programs at the time. In other words, it was not budgeted for in a normal way where you budget for a program in a department. It had a team that just been set up mid-year, and then a budget had to be found to make it move on as required. Now, as such, like the principles that apply to all other projects of government, it would require periodic extensions or assessments, not extensions, but periodic assessments. It would require a budget to run. It would require a period which would be at which it will end. There's no project that I'm aware of in government that runs indefinitely. They are all time-bound. Now, the initial mandate of the NPKTT was actually for 6 months, not 6 years, 6 months, from July 2018 to the end of the year. It was then extended from January to July 2019. And thereafter, they decided that if any extension, it would be annual. But initially, it was 6 months. That's why at the end of the first 6 months, there was an assessment. And it was decided consciously that there would need to be an extension, which was for another 6 months. Now, in 2020, there was COVID in the country, and there was no assessment that was made of the PKTT in that year. The following year, 2021, an assessment was conducted. and as required, and an extension signed off by the National Commissioner. And the National Political Killings Task Team was ultimately appointed or apportioned its funding for the relevant year because of its extension. Now, beyond 2022, because this was an extension between 2021 and 2022, there was no further extension that was sought. In the same manner, I should qualify that, as it had happened before. And there's marked differences when you look at the previous extensions and after 2022. As a result, the NPKTT continued to operate without a required assessment and renewal for more than 2 years. And I'm advised that the relevant expenditure during this period beyond 2022 on the NPKTT is irregular under the PFMA, Act 1 of 1999. So what I'm explaining here is that the National Political Killings Task Team was a project. It had a project leader. It was not a unit in SAPS, and it had no budget allocated, but budget had to be found from other programs, even during extensions, to fund it. And it's at a clear objective. And it had to be subjected to regular assessments, and costs had to be calculated. At each time there would be an extension, just like all other projects of government. And it was time bound all the time, from the time it was conceptualized. It was never an open-ended. It was 6 months, and next 6 months, and next a year, and then next a year. But after 2022, there were no longer, I would say, proper assessments in the true sense of the word.